Question 21. Claire buys some shares for $50x. Later she sells the shares for 600 plus 5x dollars and she makes a profit of X%. Show that x squared plus 90x minus 1200 equals 0. Now these types of show questions, you're not expected to have any idea as it stands where that comes from. So what you need to do is look at the information that the question gives us and use it in order to create an equation. After which, once you have that equation, you can then make it look like what we have here. Alright, so this question is clearly about profit, hence the word profit, and it's clearly about percentages, hence percentages. So we've got to do something to do with the profit and the percentage and figuring out what that is, and with the x's and stuff, we're going to end up creating an equation from that. Then later, we're going to make it look like this. So in order to calculate the profit, we need to take what she sells it for, which is the 600 plus 5x. That is the amount she sells the shares for. And we take away the original amount, 50x, because that's what she bought them for. So taking those away from each other gives us the profit itself. 600 minus 45x. Alright. If we're starting to think about it as a percentage, this profit as a percentage would have to be written out of the original amount in terms of a fraction. So 600 minus 45x out of the amount that she paid for it is how you would get the decimal that involves involved in percentages. And that fraction itself, that decimal itself, will equal x if it is divided by 100 because of the fact that it is x%. Percent literally meaning out of 100. And that is our equation that we then deal with. So this equation is what we have. That equation is what we want. Two things that are significant. One, the equation we want doesn't have any fractions in it, so we're going to start off with that. And then later we need to get everything on the same side, so we have an equals 0. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of both of these fractions. If I multiply by 100, that takes care of the numbers. And if I multiply by 100x, that will also take care of the letter on both sides. Sorry, the letter here on the bottom of that fraction. So we multiply both sides by 100x. The right hand side will just become x squared. The left hand side, effectively, because this is an over 50x and this is 100x, effectively we're multiplying the top by 2. That's really what's going to happen here. The fraction will cancel and there will be a 2 left over to multiply by, which will give us 1200 minus 90x. Then, in order to make it look like what's in yellow, we've got to get everything on the same side, but that x squared is positive. So if we get everything on the right hand side, that's going to make it, well, it basically means we're going to finish it quicker. Take away 1200 from both sides, add 90x from both sides in order to make them cancel. Do the same over here, of course, and that will then give us exactly what we want. There'll be a 0 on the left, x squared plus 90x minus 1200. You can then technically write that the other way around, but we don't have to. That is us done. Part B, solve it. Correct to 3 significant figures. We have here a quadratic. If you're being asked to solve a quadratic and you've got any mention of decimal places or significant figures, that implies your answer is not nice, which means it's not going to factorize. So we've got to use our quadratic formula for this. Quadratic formula is given, but I would still recommend writing it down anyway, like so. Then recommend writing down what the values of a, b, and c in our quadratic are. So the formula does mention it's for when you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So it's already set that way. You've already got it equal to 0. A is the number that's with x squared. There's one of them. B is the number that's with x. There's 90. And c is the number that's left over, minus 1200. So you always got to include the negatives with your terms. So sub these into the right place. I recommend putting them in brackets, although you don't need to do this for positive numbers. You do for negatives. So what I do is, just to keep it consistent, I'll do it for all numbers. I mean, you can actually type into your calculator the likes of this. You don't need to use a multiply sign. As long as you've got brackets, open, close brackets beside each other, like so, you can type that all into your calculator. There's no need to press the multiply symbol. If we do that, if we actually tidy up what's under the square root, first of all, we're going to end up with this. And then in order to deal with that plus minus, we have two options. One of them will be minus 90 plus square root of 12,900 over 2, or one of them is minus 90 minus square root of 12,900 over 2. Our answers that we get from this, 11.789 and change, or minus 101.789 and change. And then comes the rounding. Correct to three significant figures. First, second, third significant figure means the rounding is there, giving us an answer of 11.8. First, second, third significant figure gives us rounding there, which will be minus 102. Now notice one has a decimal, one doesn't. That's what happens when you're rounding significant figures. It doesn't care about the decimal place as long as there are three digits that are, so they don't have to have not zeros. That zero in between is still significant, but you're going to have three digits in your answer like that. You can have some zeros afterwards, but I don't need to write them in at this time. So that's us. We're done.